Hi, I'm Brian Vibberts. We're here in my studio, and I'm here with my good friend, Todd Burke, who also loves Antelope.
Yeah.
And we thought we'd just talk about speakers, the new speakers from Antelope Audio, the Atlas i8s, and kind of break down some of the bits and pieces of it, right? To
Just try to
kind of
talk it through.
explain some things that we didn't know at first,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe other people out there don't know some of these types of things that have been built into the speakers.
Totally. It's
Right?
easy to get kind of lost maybe in like a long list of specs, and
Yeah.
kind of talking points,
Kind of
but
break it down a little
try to
bit.
break it down, just kind of, just have a conversation about the things.
Yeah,
You've
sounds good.
had, I think, more experience than anybody with them. You've had a set. I think you got the first set delivered here and got into them, and you've spent more time in front of them than I think probably anyone on the planet today.
Wow.
But I've been by a couple times listening to them, and they sounded really good to me here in your room.
Yeah.
You've been tweaking them though.
Yes,
I
I
think
have.
a bit, right?
And we should say that, we heard them here, you and I.
Oh, and then we brought them back to my place.
Yep, to your studio. We
Yeah.
listened there for a while
Yeah.
and brought them back here.
Yeah.
So we've listened to them in different rooms.
Yeah, and the immediate thing, and I guess getting to know a speaker initially, and one of the coolest things about these is that you're able to get into them and do a little tuning,
Yeah, that's right.
which, with previous speakers I've had, has been more a matter of like getting up on a ladder and trying not to fall down as I'm moving panels and bass traps and like tuning my room to the speaker.
And then you can save those presets once you have it.
In lieu of doing that, now we can maybe do a couple of subtle EQ moves on the speaker themselves and save them. And
Right.
I'm not up on my ladder, which I'm feeling good about.
Good.
But what else is there to talk about these things? I'm kind of trying to get my head around this Isobaric situation.
Which is a new concept for me. When Antelope originally told me about it, I didn't even know what it was. So I was like, okay, so they had to explain to me. Well, it was with the two woofers
Yeah.
that are in a sealed, contained, system, and they move together, but they're both
Yeah.
powered.
Yeah,
one
yeah.
one isn't passive, and so they're both moving together.
We've seen speakers in the past of like JBL had a passive radiator, which I thought was what we were talking about. But the passive radiator wasn't powered.
Right.
It was just sort of
One's
taking
active and
the
one's
air
passive.
pressure from the cabinet
Right.
and trying to radiate some more of that outward,
Yeah.
I guess. But this is two powered drivers,
Moving together
but
in sync.
sealed air, like not a vacuum, but a sealed air
Right.
container between the two.
And that's what's moving. I guess that's moving more air to bring the lower frequencies with a smaller sized woofer.
I think that's the idea. So the way it was explained to me is that physics is physics, and we're talking about an 8-inch woofer, and for instance, for an 8-inch woofer to make, let's say,
35
30
hertz,
cycles,
right, yeah.
35 cycles, you need a certain volume of air within that speaker cabinet
To physically
to make
produce
that happen.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I think what I heard from the guys is that when they initially started designing this, they ended up with to hit sort of, I think, all of Igor's points initially, his desires
Yeah.
in a speaker. The thing was massive. And I think that's where this Isobaric thing, I hope I'm right, but I think that's where this Isobaric conversation started.
Of how do we
like,
reduce the size,
just
physical
literally
size
some
of
guys
the speaker?
standing around like looking at this look at this huge speaker going, I don't think we can who's gonna,
It doesn't fit in
I don't think we can
doorways.
sell-
How's this going to work?
Exactly. You can't get in your car.
Yeah.
So hence here we have these Isobaric drivers, and it's impressive how much low end they make, and what
Yeah,
an
it is.
impressive like that lowest octave. They actually make that lowest octave.
Right.
I've had a subwoofer in my place forever, but you could you're running with no sub, I think, on
That's
yours,
right. Yeah, no sub.
It's pretty impressive.
It is.
Out of a speaker that size. So Isobaric.
Yeah.
I guess
it was
I'm
done
buying it.
in the 70s, but I think that hasn't really been
I think
done
this-
that much recently.
It's interesting. Well, it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see if maybe this will become a thing.
That's right.
In speaker design. We'll see. But as always, not to get too shilly, but Antelope is often at like the very leading edge of certain technologies. And I hate to sound like this guy, but I'm going to be this guy. It's impressive.
It is impressive.
Maybe Igor and the guys are on to yet another kind of little breakthrough with this, with the Isobaric. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yet again. Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
But so there's that. There's the dual concentric tweeter and mid-range driver, which there's been a million companies, I guess, over the years that have shown that the dual concentric drivers are awesome. And I feel like there is really good cohesion. I feel like I'm not necessarily hearing a crossover point between the tweeter and the mid-range.
Right.
And
Right.
maybe-
And the imaging between
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
is really good.
Maybe that has something to do with the dual concentric situation. I like the idea that, like, the arrival times are perfectly
Right.
aligned and
Right.
all that.
Phase coherent.
Yeah. They're digitally controlled, so that means, you can EQ, you can create profiles.
Save presets, and other speaker companies have done it where you can kind of sweep the room and that kind of thing, and it could be built into this with it being digitally controlled.
Well, that's the thing we
right?
mentioned the other day, and I talked to the guys, and they're apparently going to build a control panel for this, of course, but apparently on the control panel they're going to create an even more robust EQ than cause it's a 4-band EQ, I believe.
Right.
On the back.
Yeah. Two shelf EQs and then two bell curve.
Yeah.
So, which actually is pretty flexible, but sometimes you might need more flexibility than that. So
I feel like 4 bands you could voice at speaker, but you can't really get into like adjusting the mode in your room and like doing some of the kind of like nitty gritty
it's true.
tuning stuff.
Right.
It's yet to come, but there's going to be a control panel that drives these with an even more robust EQ, and that's exciting. That'll be cool.
Well, the great thing about that is you can sit in the primary listening position and change the EQ there.
Instead of going around the back.
Yeah, for
like,
me, I was
running around the front.
Yeah, well, that was me here. I was going back and forth
Right.
and I'm talking, it was like up a half a dB, go over here, listen. Oh, maybe that went too far.
Yeah.
Go back. Oh, you know what? Maybe the frequency needs to be dropped down a little. So I was going back and forth.
It
back
does
and
your
forth.
head in when you can't just switch back and
Yeah,
forth. And
so
AV and all
it'd be
that.
much easier with the control panel. So you can just kind of, it's easy. You just kind of go.
Well, so
Yeah.
to be determined.
That's right.
Apparently on the way.
Yes.
What else?
We should talk filters.
So the IIR filters, it was explained to me, are sort of. This is so meat-headed. I apologize to my future self, but it's like a real typical sort of digital EQ, rather than like what I know is like a linear phase EQ. So the FIR filters are sort of what you and I would know as a linear phase EQ,
Right.
and the IIR filters are sort of more typical.
Right. But the IIR filters are like more musical, right? And that's
think
why
so.
they're using them for the crossovers.
So what I've been told is that, again, it's all digitally controlled. So when they were working on these digitally controlled crossover points, they realized pretty quickly that the linear phase just sounded kind of edgy, and it tended to ring. It just wasn't as,
Not as musical, right? They're just not.
forgive the term, but it's no one's favorite term, but just not as musical.
Right.
So I guess, the long and short of it, I suppose, is that the way I understand is that they've just employing a couple of different types of digital equalizers to make the most musical sounding product. So, and they do,
Which is kind of cool. It's using like a better filter for that purpose. And then, although the latency of the FIR filters is a little bit more.
It's part of the trade-off, I think, in the give and take of kind of choosing one over the other. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think the speakers sound awfully good. And we just keep saying it. The ability to sort of voice them to your particular taste is pretty kick-ass.
Yeah, it is. Usually a Class D amp is not something where you're like, wow, that's impressive. There's a Class D amp in this. But this is a special kind of situation because Igor went in and, unlike what most people would do, he made his own amp from scratch.
Apparently
that's impressive.
It is, and when I listen to these, I don't think... There have been a couple of other manufacturers that... We can't say the names, but there have been a few other speakers that I've felt pretty good about the speakers, but that came with a Class D amp. And I felt like I've actually heard them with and without the amp, and I've got a real repulsion to Class D, I thought, in a kind of brittle and cold
Until you heard these?
thing. I haven't had that repulsion with these.
Right.
So whatever they did, I don't know what they did. I don't know how.
Well,
how
I
it's
feel like
different.
this is the kind of the history and like legacy of Antelope Audio, with Igor taking something that you could easily maybe just buy some parts or buy pieces of it from somewhere else, but instead of that, he just does it himself from scratch and makes something much better than anything else that would be out there that he could buy.
That's true.
Right?
That's
He
true.
just like elevates it to a new level, and then with converters, with clocking, it's just like one after another. Now with this in the speakers.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that fair to say?
they've got a long history of just sort of, doing everything in-house. like I'd love to go to Sofia sometime and go check out the building.
Yeah.
Because I've heard, manufacturers on the ground level and sales is on the next level and the marketing, I don't know, support. And it's all happening out of one building, and it's pretty cool. I think it's a
for
really,
all of this
really,
to be happening in one place.
and at this scale is
right.
kind of crazy that they're
for
able
the
to
world.
pull it off. Yeah. It's a little bit sort of bespoke gear to a degree on a really, really large scale, and I think that's pretty cool. The bottom line really is they're just such an innovative company.
Yeah.
And it's yet another product that feels like, it feels like a new take on a thing that lots of people are doing pretty well. It's the Antelope style.
Right.
And a lot of us are real big fans of that. I count myself into that crew of people that really, really, really enjoy
what Antelope does and has been doing throughout all these years.
Yeah, it's a huge part of kind of what I do, and I think that it elevates the music that I'm able to get my hands on.
And it's another whole new world into the land of speakers, right?
Here we go.
Who would have thought Antelope Audio would be doing speakers? Here we are.
I did not.
Yeah.
I suspect headphones. I can't imagine what's coming, but I have to. I can only guess, but I'm sure some stuff. So we'll see.
I would imagine. Right. Well, more to come.
Back to work.
Well, thanks, Todd, for joining me here in my studio and talking about Antelope Audio and the Atlas i8 speakers. And hopefully we've cleared up some things for people that were a little confused about some of the concepts and what's in the speakers,
so.
right?
Yeah. No, but it's great to get together. I'll rally around the Antelope cause anytime because I'd love this gear.
It's always great to have you here. It's good to hang out.
It's good to hang.
Right?
And
thanks everyone out there for listening.